What's going on, everybody? This is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video we're going to be doing a comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A52 and the Samsung Galaxy A71. Now before we go any further, I do want to mention that this is the international version of the Samsung Galaxy A52. That being said, let's get started. So the Samsung Galaxy A52 has a 6.5-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 407, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 84.6%. We got a hole punch for the front-facing camera here, it looks really good, and this camera is 32 megapixels. The Samsung Galaxy A71 has a 6.7-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 393, and an aspect ratio of 20:9. So these displays are really similar. I would say the bezels are a tiny bit thinner on the Samsung Galaxy A71, and the screen is noticeably larger as well. But on the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy A52 has a 90Hz display, which means the scrolling and general motion on the screen will be a little bit smoother and faster. Whereas with the Samsung Galaxy A71, even though it's not bad, it's still not quite the level of the Samsung Galaxy A52. Both of them have really good displays though. Super AMOLED displays have so much brighter colors than an LCD or TFT display or something like that. So that's really impressive as well. Overall, I don't really have any complaints about either of them. Both of them are going to be great for content consumption. And honestly, the benefits kind of even out. On one hand, with the Samsung Galaxy A52, that 90Hz display is going to make stuff with motion like streaming videos and high performance gaming and that sort of thing a little bit better of an experience. But on the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy A71 has a much larger screen, as you can see here. And having a larger display is going to make a difference when it comes to stuff like gaming and consuming content as well. And reading is probably going to be a little bit better on this phone too, just because it's a little bit bigger. So really, even though each phone has its strong points, both phones are really going to be great for content consumption, high performance gaming, and even stuff like photo and video editing. In addition to that, the Samsung Galaxy A71 also has a hole punch front-facing camera that is 32 megapixels, just like the A52. Now, both of these phones are getting 128 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and this is a really good amount of storage. You're going to be able to fit pretty much anything you need on there, whether you have lots of larger apps like games or lots of photos and videos. And in the case of photos and videos, you can even put that all on a microSD card as well. Neither of these phones have wireless charging, unfortunately. I was disappointed to see that this feature wasn't added on to the A52, since this is a much newer model, but luckily both these phones have face unlock and a fingerprint scanner, so those are really good features. It's nice to have both because then you get the convenience of if one isn't working out, then you can always use the other. We're going to give these fingerprint scanners a try and see how they perform. Starting with the A52. That was pretty nice. One more time. There we go. It was really fast and responsive. I don't have any complaints. And besides its performance, I think the in-display fingerprints are the best looking as well. It really adds a nice modern feel to it that really makes the phone feel a little bit more premium. We're going to test out the fingerprint scanner for the Samsung Galaxy A71. One more time. And that one was pretty much the same. Both of these fingerprint scanners are completely functional. I have no problem with either of them. They're really fast and responsive, and not only that, but they really look nice. Again, I do think that fingerprint scanners that are in the display add a really nice modern touch to them that really goes along with the look of the rest of the phone. Now let's take a look at the rear camera setups of these two phones. The Samsung Galaxy A52 has a 64 megapixel rear camera, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, a 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. The Samsung Galaxy A71 has basically the exact same things, with a 64 megapixel rear camera as well, a 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera, the 5 megapixel depth sensing camera, and the 5 megapixel macro camera. Now let's take a look at a few sample images and see how the quality of these pictures compare to each other. So these pictures were taken by the rear cameras of each phone. They look really similar, almost the same. I would say that both of them have their own way that makes the picture really good. On one hand, with the Samsung Galaxy A52, the lighting is really nice. The shadows and everything really just fall into place perfectly. Nothing is really too bright, and the details are just a little bit more vivid. It almost reminds me of pictures taken with the iPhone 12. The iPhone, from my experience, has really more cinematic, vivid details in it, in addition to the quality and all of that. With the Samsung Galaxy A71, the picture is just as good quality, and I would argue that as far as the sharpness and details go, it might be a little bit better than the picture of the Samsung Galaxy A52. But on the other hand, the lighting and just general accents as far as the color goes isn't really as interesting. It's really just a high quality photo with normal looking details, whereas things are definitely brought out and kind of exaggerated a little bit more in the Samsung Galaxy A52. So if you're into photography and want really good quality pictures, both of these phones are really going to be good. But if you want your pictures to have a little bit extra, just some more life in them, I would say the Samsung Galaxy A52 is going to do the job just a tiny bit better, because between the two, they look almost the same, except the picture taken by the Samsung Galaxy A52 just has a little bit something extra to it that makes it look more interesting. Now, as far as video mode goes, both of these phones are able to shoot video in 4K in both the rear and the front cameras, which is really good for videography. You're not really going to see huge differences in quality between these two phones as far as the video goes. It's going to be more or less the same you saw in the photos, which is not a whole lot. I would expect the A52 to have just a slightly more interesting texture to it. It does seem to do that, which I really like about this phone. Now, you might not like it. You might prefer the more straightforward, just realistic, normal looking pictures of the A71, and that's fine because the A71 takes really great quality pictures, and this might especially be the case if you really are into editing your own photos that you take. That could definitely make a difference. For me, I personally don't really like editing photos that much. I like to have stuff as effortless as possible when it comes to taking photos. So I would prefer to just put a picture in a simple mobile photo editing app, already looking good, and maybe touching up a thing or two here and there. So the pictures taken by the Samsung Galaxy A52 would probably just fit my needs better. But if you do like that more minimalistic, basic style, as far as the appearance of your photos goes, then the Samsung Galaxy A52 might have a little bit of an edge there. But again, with video, they're basically going to be the same for all intents and purposes. Now, internally, both of these phones are getting 6 gigabytes of RAM. The Samsung Galaxy A52 with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G processor, and the Samsung Galaxy A71 with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 730 processor. So they are going to be real similar as far as that goes. That being said, there is a noticeable difference in processing power. We ran Geekbench 5 benchmark tests on both of these phones, and the Samsung Galaxy A52 came back with a single core score of 538 and a multi-core score of 1559. The A71 came back with a single core score of 547 and a multi-core score of 1737. So they are pretty close, but that difference is still going to be there, and it's going to be noticeable. Maybe not so much in basic activities, but when you get into more high performance activities, if you're doing things that are more taxing on the RAM, then you're definitely going to see that difference. To really give you an idea of what this difference in processing power looks like, I'm going to be doing a quick demonstration. We're going to start by opening Google Chrome. So there, the Samsung Galaxy A71 did pull things up a little bit faster. Let's try a web page and see if that stays the same. So that time, the A52 did pull things up a little bit faster. Let's try one more and see if that's really consistent. That time, it was almost the same. And again, it really was almost the same. So definitely on paper, according to Geekbench, the Samsung Galaxy A71 is going to be a little bit more powerful, a little bit faster. But as far as daily activities go, like I said before, you're not going to really see that big a difference. The only time that that difference in processing power is really going to show itself is if you're doing something like high performance gaming or maybe video editing, something that's really taxing on the processor, because then that processing power really will have an effect. But other than that, if you're doing more basic and moderate activities on these phones that don't really use up a ton of RAM, then I would say that speed-wise, these phones are basically the same. Now, these phones also do have the same battery with a 4500 milliamp hour battery that supports 25 watt fast charging. These are really good sized batteries. Not only are you going to get a lot of life per charge, but you're also going to get longevity down the road. As these batteries degrade, you're not going to notice it that much compared to a phone like an iPhone that has a really tiny battery. You're going to notice that a lot faster, but with these, you're going to be in real good shape for quite a long time. Plus, the fast charging never hurts either. If you have a fast charger, you'll be able to take advantage of that extra charging speed. Now, in conclusion, which of these phones is better? This is a really close one. Definitely, if we were comparing an A52 to an A51, I would say the A52 is definitely the better model. It has some newer features, some updates that the older models like the A71 and the A51 don't have. But in this case, the A71 really does have most of the advantages here. It has a slightly faster processor and a noticeably larger display as well, which is going to be really good for content consumption and stuff like gaming, and especially things like photo and video editing and reading where you really need to see the details. But on the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy A52 does have some features that I wouldn't overlook. For example, the camera does have just some extra life to the photos it takes, and especially when you see it in person, you'll definitely notice it really does have a great quality. Not to say the A71 isn't good too, but I still would say the camera of the Samsung Galaxy A52 is just a tiny bit better overall. The other thing the A52 has going for it is that it has a 90 Hz display, which is going to make the movement a little bit better looking on the screen. And for content consumption, that does kind of balance out with not having quite as big of a screen as the A71, just because the movement is going to look nicer. But personally, I would choose the bigger screen, just because even though the 90 Hz makes everything smoother on the A52, the A71's scrolling and movement on the screen is fine. So I don't really see as much value in it compared to having a larger display. But on the other hand, the other thing the Samsung Galaxy A52 does have is a few extra features. For example, dust and water resistance. Finally, we're getting a mid-level phone that's not a flagship phone that has dust and water resistance, and I think that that is really nice. But that being said, these phones are really even. If you want a newer phone with newer updates and features and a camera that takes slightly more interesting pictures, then the Samsung Galaxy A52 is probably going to be a little bit better for you. But if you want more processing power and a larger display, then the A71 would probably be a better choice in that situation. But overall, both of these phones are really good mid-level phones, and in most situations, you're not going to go wrong with either of them. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. For more info on the phones themselves, be sure to check out the full reviews of the devices on the channel. And for info about pricing and availability, check the link in the description because that stuff is always changing. But that's it for today, guys. I will see you in the next video.